Okay.
Right, that's awesome. Like, literally, my mic falls down just as we go live. Hi, everybody! It is Thursday, which means you get to
Yes.
spend the evening with my hot mess self, my good friend William Wofford, and my good friend Keith Shevlin. And we are going to be talking about Prodigy's Mindwalk, where Star Trek takes us Freaky Friday and sort of turns
Again.
it on its head. Yeah, well, okay, it's a trope. I'll give you that. But it's going to turn it on its head a little, and we're going to see something very, very different. So I'm looking forward to talking about this episode. I am sorry that I'm apparently out of practice and completely unable to talk today. But bean footage?
Roll it.
All right. And I'm always excited to hear that. Always, always, always. And I do, in fact, do the chair dance every time. So, Mindwalk. Who wants to do the summary?
I'm sorry, I'm just now reading Marco's comment.
I take 1 week off. One.
Oh my god. Okay.
1 week off, guys. One. Oh,
Was it one?
It was one. I missed one.
Are you sure?
I thought
It
it
was
was
only
two.
one?
Yeah. And y'all,
Why did
not
it feel
only
like
was it
3
one,
weeks?
not only was it one, I literally broadcasted from New York.
Yeah.
How much I love you guys.
I was there for that.
Well, Manny
one.
ran it 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
3 weeks ago we didn't have the episode because of Thanksgiving.
And then last week was me. And then, wow. I think this is like reverse law of relativity or something. I don't know.
Okay,
I got my
Okay.
Oreos today.
Okay,
All right.
so
Keith's
this is
apparently going to do it.
Mindwalk, the
Mindwalk.
18th episode of season 1 of Prodigy, written by Julie Benson and Shauna Benson. Picks us up right where we left off last week's episode. The Protostar has left the neutral zone, and it's right in front of the Dauntless. The ship is under the control of the living construct. The Janeway hologram has gone absolutely... Well, she's beside herself. She can't believe she betrayed the crew so much. So it's so sad that she deactivates herself out of sorrow.
Misplaced guilt, I'd say.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the Dauntless, they're trying to get Janeway to the bridge, but no one can find her. You had Essentia turning back into her true self, and as they stick Janeway in a closet, it's because they can't just kill her.
Nobody sticks Janeway in a corner. Nobody.
So then they try to figure out, once again, they have to reiterate why they can't open communications, and they made sure they said it twice, that if they open communications, the ship will be destroyed. They come up with a different way, remembering that Zero is telepathic, and one of the races that Dow is genetically linked to is the Organians, who are telepathic. They decide to make a little hive mind to try to connect telepathically with Janeway, who is, of course, passed out in a closet. Now, they do this just as the ship is fired upon by the Dauntless. And, of course, this is also while they're at warp, and the two ships have merged their warp bubbles. which is something we didn't know they could do before, but okay.
I have a comment on that. But after you're done.
Shh, guys.
So,
shh.
so because
Hand wavy technology.
tech. Yeah. So they were fired. Dauntless was firing on the Protostar, and they're able to make this connection. But because of the firing, their connection is lost. But not before their Katras. I mean, their minds have been swapped between Janeway and Dahl. And now
I see what you did there.
Nice.
And now Admiral Janeway is inside Dahl, and Dahl is inside Admiral Janeway. And of course, all the Freaky Friday things commence. Of course, the Protostar crew is instantly recognizing and welcoming having Admiral Janeway on board, even though she looks and sounds like Dahl. And they start working with her to try to solve the problem, tell her what's going on. And through it all, she also realizes that there's someone else there that she needs to talk to. And she opens up the hole in the floor and goes down to talk to hologram Janeway. And
who is sulking?
Yes. And they have this beautiful moment, and we finally get the name for Janeway's sister. All throughout Voyager, she referenced having a sister, but she never said her name. So finally, you got the name of the sister, Phoebe. And hologram Janeway gets told by the real Janeway through Dahl that it's not your fault. And we have this beautiful moment between the two. Meanwhile, Dahl has no idea what he's doing, and he's being crazy, making finger guns, and thanking people for their service, and falling out of the captain's chair, and spitting out coffee. Really, they should have put her in the brig as soon as she spit out the coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that it went several minutes after that was just crazy. But she tells them to stop firing. They listen to her, and then they realize, no, something's wrong here. They tie her up in sickbay, and it takes the diviner to let her loose because they were so nice to him. He decides to be nice to her for once. And then finally, they're able to make a connection using charades that they find that they have to be touching each other because for some reason the phaser touching the ship was a physical connection. So now they are going to have Dahl in a spacesuit going out the back of the Protostar, being held by Murph, with Janeway coming out from the Dauntless in a spacesuit so that they can touch hands and their minds can go back into their proper bodies. But just as they're about to touch, the hand of God, the tractor beam pulls Admiral Janeway back.
I mean, this really was the birth of man.
Yes.
Right here.
But then Janeway in Dahl pulls the phaser and fires on herself. That's going to take some counseling sessions to go over. And by having that physical connection, is able to transfer her mind back into her body. Dahl returns back to the ship, gives Murph a big hug. Everybody's happy, and they're yes, Janeway's on our side now. To which Dahl goes, "Yeah, about that." And we go back to the Dauntless, where Janeway is in the brig
and surrounded by Sovereign and Defiant class.
Well, yes, yeah. So then. They've gone to warp. They end up in Federation space. The Janeway's second command had warned the fleet, so now the fleet is waiting, and they show up in this sector to have Luna class, Sovereign class, Defiant class. A lot of copy and paste ships. It's worse than
right.
Well.
Right.
It answers the question that we had, or that we've had over the course of the show, was when does this take place?
Yeah.
And this is definitely before the events of Picard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we expected that. We just knew it was after Lower Decks, which is, of course, after Voyager, after Nemesis.
Yep.
So this is,
Sorry.
And I love that, by the way, Essentia is the one who orchestrated this whole business with getting.
We never saw this coming. We never saw it coming.
Like she's very much like, maybe if I suggest to Andorian guy whose name I can never remember. Like
I keep blanking on it. Hold on, let me find it.
Because it's like Taurus or Torfus or something like that, but I never remember. Because I mean, all I remember is that this is the Andorian that apparently is like seriously either hungover or high the entire time.
Tysus.
I was kind of hoping his character would be a little bit more annoying, like just be that annoying officer. Like,
except he's not. He's actually pretty good at what he does.
Yeah, no, the annoying one is Dr. Noom.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah, that's fair.
But to be fair, he is a Tellarite, so that's kind of like part of
exactly. It goes without saying.
Right. Like it's a cultural thing. But yeah, but Essentia is the one who influences Tysus to call the fleet to meet them right in the heart of Federation space. Because I mean, if we recall from last episode, we're headed toward Terra.
Yeah.
For this, because apparently Essentia is all about the go big or go home.
This episode was so damn good. Like
there was a lot. There was a lot going on.
There's so many. Well, it's like we got an A plot, we got a B plot, damn near got a C plot, and then the Easter eggs were absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like this episode had the most touching Easter eggs. Like,
I see what you did there.
I don't think he knows he did.
I think you need an Oreo.
No, but for real, okay. Do you want to? Do we? What are we doing? Do we want to go over the Easter eggs? Do we review parts of the show? Our favorite part? What are we doing?
About one thing before we get into this, and it's what we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
When we were kind of hashing out like how we felt about the previous Halloween episode going into this one, the back half of season 1 and to a certain extent the early parts of season 1 in Prodigy have all sort of had as this thematic underpinning this question of what you do, how you decide to live when all the people who are supposed to be taking care of you and who are supposed to be role models and who are supposed to be teaching you what you need to do fail you. And that's effectively what we're getting again. So Halloween episode, whose title escapes me.
Ghost in the Machine.
Oh, of course it is. So we've got that where Holographic Janeway is the only adult figure in this entire season that has yet to betray them. And the living construct takes that from them. And so that's the very tail end of it. And that's what's leading into this situation. Because we've got this ultimate betrayal from Holographic Janeway. And then Admiral Janeway demonstrates what happens when the adult figures in your life get their shit together and come back to doing what they're supposed to do, which is taking care of these kids. But we've also set up a really interesting sort of issue with respect to Starfleet, right? Because Dal is illegal in the Federation through no fault of his own.
Just him existing.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's an augment, which he had no control over, obviously.
None.
And didn't even know about
until recently, right? It makes him illegal in the Federation. And if this isn't a metaphor, I don't know what is.
Can we get into the legalities of this, Marie? Like, because he was made outside of the Federation. I hear that too.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. No. We hear each other twice.
Yeah, there's an echo. But anyway, talk about the legality of whether or not
this takes place outside of the Federation. Okay. No, we know what the morals are. But as far as legalities go, does the Federation have any jurisdiction over Dal?
As soon as Dal enters Federation territory, yes.
Yeah.
Which they now are. They are right there.
Yeah, because he's not a diplomat. He can't claim diplomatic immunity.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, and I'm assuming that the Federation has a similar posture on ignorance of the law but not being an excuse, the way sort of common law jurisdictions do.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, like Dahl is up shit creek.
Yeah, and the only reason they gave Discovery a pass in the 32nd century is because they needed them.
Yeah,
a little bit. So Dahl isn't doing any of those things, and we talked a little bit about this again before we went on air. This dovetails really nicely with the end of Strange New Worlds, right? With Una being led off in chains because
just of who she is.
In part, there are a couple of issues here. In part because of who she is, but mostly I'd say probably because she lied about it.
Yeah.
But she's in a situation where she has to lie about it. She doesn't have a choice because, again, her existence is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a really interesting question, and I like where Prodigy's going with this. And I hope Strange New Worlds picks this up and goes this way to ask the question of, here is the Federation, here is Starfleet that is holding itself out as, truth, justice, and, the awesome way in the universe, and has all these great morals, right? And these morals that Dahl is now building his life around in a very real way. And Starfleet is about to betray him.
Yeah.
In a fundamental way, in a fundamentally unjust way.
And he's 14? Like,
I think he's like 16, 17.
16. So, what one thing that I liked, and I'm sure, and if we ever do opposite tracks again, that this might be covered. But with these last 5 shows in this new Trek Renaissance era that we're in, we are seeing more dirt in Starfleet. Not Starfleet, the Federation as a whole. Like the horrible politics behind it, the ignorant laws that they have in place, and which I'm actually kind of glad they're magnifying that, because it's just like, it's not this savior complex Federation that we were low-key kind of raised with. It's like, oh yeah, Federation got some shit too,
right?
That's just not right.
It's not, and again, Prodigy is dealing with this in a kid's show.
So how does a kid respond to? It's like in metaphor, as a metaphor, I view the construct as like life, and life hinders the parent from doing what they need to do. In this case, hologram Janeway takes that away. So Admiral Janeway comes in, but then life comes back again, and now they're surrounded by a battalion of Federation starships. And now Dahl is about to be betrayed for again. Like, and I don't think they were really, they were hurt, but not in the sense of we don't want hologram Janeway anymore. But I feel like they're really about to get hurt once Dahl learns about.
I think Gwen is about to tell him not to go. Because
because if Dahl doesn't go in, none of them are going to go in.
Right. And I honestly think that Gwen is about to basically say, no, that's not a thing we're going to do. And part of me actually sort of thinks that this is on purpose. I mean, obviously it's on purpose, but like, I think we're setting up a almost Voyager-esque situation for the Protostar going forward.
Where they're kind of like Starfleet light, but never actually joining Starfleet. They're just going to constantly be out there.
Yeah, I think so. And I also sort of wouldn't call it Starfleet light. I actually think that they're a purer manifestation of what Starfleet should be.
Okay.
Than sometimes Starfleet is. Because remember how Lower Decks ended?
Yeah.
Right? With the Admiral betrayal. We've seen it before in TNG. We've seen like the Maquis question going back and forth. Like, is Starfleet failing these people? Are they not? What are the actual sort of penumbral questions floating around that? And Prodigy is just taking that shit head on. So
yeah.
All right, Aaron, if you're watching, mad props. And I love it that we're doing it with kids. Because I've said this before, Prodigy never assumes kids are not a sophisticated audience, ever. ever.
Right.
They're not sugarcoating anything. They're not talking down to anybody. They're not guaranteeing anything. But what they are doing is they're demonstrating that even in these situations, even when all the chips are down and all of these people have turned their back on you, manipulated you, done horrible things to you, you can still make a better choice.
I have one thing, and then I'd like to turn it over to Keith. I feel like is that Jesus?
No.
But
I mean,
dang.
we did have the tractor beam of God.
I know, right?
Which, by the way, we need to put that on our merch list. Like,
tractor beam of
I would legit wear like a T-shirt that said the tractor beam of God.
But I remember the Naomi Wildman episode where her mother was stuck in the asteroid, and Neelix was shielding the truth from her. And Neelix had to learn as the temporary parent that he was, that you can't just blatantly lie to the children's face and think that they're not going to find out on their own. Like,
remember, Neelix was very good at blatantly lying to children, as seen with Cass.
Yeah.
No, the word you're looking for is predating. Like that was predatory.
Grooming or
yeah.
Yeah, she was only 3.
Oh my God.
Oh no, she was only 3. Anyway. But anyway, that said,
that's a whole conversation, guys.
That's a whole conversation I don't even know where to even debate on that. Like, I don't.
I mean, that's going to be an FTP. Let's be real.
That's an FTP for real. But so to what Marie was saying was that they are taking this head on with Prodigy, and it's not just like, oh, this is like something that they're just gonna have to learn and deal with. No, this is something that even as adults that we have a hard time coping with if we were living in the 21st century with those laws in place. We saw how it affected Bashir. We saw how it affected other members of the Federation. We saw how the Federation have done other people dirty. And now it's about to happen to these children. Gwen already has a distaste for people that goes against her family and friends, and because she was raised to be a certain way. And now the very people that she's running to is about to tell Dal no. Like, if you tell Dal no, then then we're not going to join. So how does a child? I guess what I'm kind of wondering from a perspective from a person that doesn't have children. At what point do you come to terms with, and I don't know anything about being a parent, but at what point do you come with situations as intense as this and you want to shield your child from the truth, but at one point do you tell them the truth?
I think you tell them. I think you find an age-appropriate way to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something I am staring down the pike at myself.
Right.
And I, this is going to sound hypocritical, but I'm kicking that conversation down the road a little bit further because I'm not ready for it. It is not
that's what I'm saying. As adults, we're not even ready for it. So how do we even tell our kids about what's going on?
Right. But I think the most important part of this is that you never assume that your kids aren't going to understand.
Yeah.
And you have a responsibility, actually, to make them understand. And I think I'm constantly surprised, even with my kids being 4.5 years old, I am constantly surprised at how much they grasp and how fast they do.
Hello.
Told you.
I mean, right?
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Start over.
Jason,
wait. Jason's like half an hour late, and he's like, it starts now.
I told you to stop being on Color People time. Now you're sitting here acting like Michael.
Start over from the beginning.
In the beginning was the word, and Oreos.
Oh Jesus!
This is
the tractor beam of God.
But the tractor beam of God and created the first Adam out of a pile of goo.
And all right, he's like, I'm done with your shenanigans. I'm done with your comic. I appreciate that.
Keith, I would love first of all, for 1 minute, I would love to be Keith's girlfriend and get in an argument, and then he just pick up a comic book and start reading.
I will pay you. I will pay you. I will cash app you right now if you do that right here, right now.
No, do you want him to die? His girlfriend's Nigerian.
No.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, sucky ducky quack.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I don't do that to her. I've never done that to anyone I've been with. No. My children, yes.
But you
Anyone
thought
in a relationship, no.
children.
But if Keith, if you could, Jason, the question that was asked was, we talked about the legalities of the episode, the morals of the episode. Now we're talking about the parentals of this episode. At what point, no matter how horrible the truth is that we have a hard time facing with how screwed up the Federation can be, at what point do we tell our children the truth? And that now then it went to Keith because I want to hear his thoughts. Like,
does anybody call you Bill?
There's only one person that called me Bill, and I'm sure.
And they've been missing for a while.
And they no longer exist.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, William, first of all, me and you don't have kids. So
that part.
That's a whole different.
That's a whole different thing. Yeah.
It depends on what you're talking about. I mean, like some of your kids.
Okay, so basically, I assumed you watched today's episode. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dal is going to have to learn a truth that's ultimately going to break him. And
what truth is that?
That he will not be accepted into Starfleet,
right.
and more than that, his very existence is illegal.
Right.
But that's no fault of his own. And so we were like, even Janeway, because Janeway is I don't know if she has kids, but she seems like a parental figure.
And
she
dogs.
And she was heartbroken in just telling the crew, telling Gwen, I think it was Gwen, they're not going to accept Dal. As a matter of fact, him being who he is illegal.
Well, you know what? I think there's more things to do in the galaxy, in the Alpha Quadrant, Alpha and Beta Quadrant, than being in Starfleet. I think he'll get over that.
It's a big galaxy.
I mean, yes.
Yeah,
but what I love about it is that I think Dal is going to make Janeway kind of look real hard at what's going on and why this isn't okay.
I hope Janeway adopts him.
And we've seen this whole twist, right, where Admiral Janeway, now that she's actually got all the facts, has just completely reversed her posture and has decided that she's going to be like, all right, I'm going to take care of these kids. They are the victims.
Yeah.
Right, and then of course they stick her in the brig. Yeah. You know, I gotta say, I just don't think I ever want to be an admiral in Starfleet.
I mean,
weird shit happens.
I mean, if you think about it,
you mean you don't want to be an asshole? Is that like
Admiral,
most admirals are assholes in Starfleet?
The bad.
I mean, I don't go through life expecting to be an asshole. It just sometimes happens.
All I gotta say is, Kai Wynn was evil Karen, and Admiral Nechev was Starfleet Karen.
Lawful neutral Karen.
Lawful neutral, yes.
I'm still looking for nude pictures of Kai Wynn on the internet.
Excuse me while I sip on my wine. Don't you be disrespectful to Louise Fletcher. May she rest in peace.
I know,
right? What is it with that light in the background? What? Don't fix that.
What?
All right,
William.
Jason, you are derailing the entire show. It's kind of nice that it's not me this time.
3 episodes in a row with that light. Like, what are you doing? Thank you.
All right. So, not disrespecting Louise Fletcher aside. Yeah, I really want Prodigy to force Starfleet to take a long look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Long look at what? At their
the rules on genetics.
The problem is that I understand it's like the rules on steroids in our society. You know, it's like, yes, there can be a thing that's helpful, but they can when it gets too extreme, it's a problem.
Right. But I mean, Starfleet has taken, I mean, I get it, right? Like all of this is based on Terra's trauma from the eugenics wars, right?
Which was what we now learned was World War III.
Well,
Right.
part of, yeah.
Part of, yeah. So that, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but the problem is, and we've seen it in Strange New Worlds, and we saw a little bit of it in Deep Space Nine, and we're seeing it now, is that Starfleet and the Federation corrected too far.
Mhm.
Yes,
Because when you are starting to try and argue that, and the Federation that is largely holding itself out to be a utopia looks at people like and says they're illegal.
Yeah.
Well,
Just you
I
being here is illegal.
I think it makes sense, but I think there should still be like a planet out there somewhere where like it's legal and free.
Valeria?
So we can see how it's going to go. But I mean, we all saw Gattaca, right? Like there's problems with, and we all saw Space Seed, but there's problems with augments. There are problems with that. Who gets it? What's going to happen? Yeah. Are there problems with trying to like accentuate and make the physical better and the mental better without understanding how we're destroying the mental actually of a person? And that's always hard to understand how you're affecting someone's like psychology and brain function. It's never simple to see that.
Can you flesh that out further?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because, like, you know, the Illyrians take the Illyrians, right? Like from Strange New Worlds. Una's fine.
Right, we see that.
Una's fine. Like, I mean, she has her shit together and, you know, single-handedly saves the ship on at least one occasion. So I don't understand how, like, is the argument you're making that we're concerned about the instability?
Yeah, they don't understand about the stability of the mental aspect of the individual that they create. So take Khan and into account. So Khan and all his people were these great people, but they didn't take into account the fact that having this great power would.
If you say great responsibility, I'm gonna cry.
I was trying hard not to. I was trying hard not to.
For that more, it's great power, great ambition, or
ambition.
I
superiority complex.
I think the question there is that an augment problem or is that a Khan problem?
Well, I think it was an augment problem with most of them because they all followed him and were doing the same thing he was doing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We assume that to be the case. There's actually a lot we don't know about the eugenics wars.
We don't, exactly, because if you think about it, each of the times that there have been like hidings of your ancestry or whether or not you were upgraded, like Bashir didn't turn out to be Khan. Like Khan made his decision. There's two things about Khan. One, he was the one that made that conscious choice. He made the conscious decision to view everyone the way he did. And two, and no one has. I know we all know this, but I'm going to verbally say it. Khan is temporary. Is in a temporal sense displaced. He is not from that era. He is not from that time frame. He is from the time frame of the eugenics wars before they took the ship and left Australia. So, like, I feel like there's a lot of things that I feel like there's a lot of fear. Now, I will say, I will give slight props to the Federation on one thing. They made it to where you can't really upgrade yourself mentally or physically unless you are doing a medical repair. Like
right. So if we see somebody, if we see an embryo, a fetus, and they're like, this person, your child is going to have MS by the time he's 30. We should, but we can correct that. we all agree that yes, we should correct that, right? Like,
Well, Geordie LaForge would say otherwise.
Well, yeah, that was Jordy's choice. We don't really know the extent of when Jordy went blind. It could have been
no,
a
it's
Ray Charles.
blindness and MS is different. Plus, Jordy had the technology. If Jordy didn't have the technology to fix his vision, he might have a different opinion about it. You know,
I mean, ultimately, we know he does entirely replace his eyes.
yeah.
Right.
So seeing is actually important to him. It's not something he can't do without. He never says, "I don't need it." It's
And there's
always something he needed.
And Star Trek has a really interesting relationship with disability, and some of that has to do with the fact that it's not medical care; it's magic.
So then I have a
Blue
question
light
for
on
you.
it.
Then I have a question for Marie then, and then anyone can answer it. So at what point do we draw the line between representation for those that have disabilities and medical care in the 24th century? At what point do we draw that line?
Lines are horrible things, and lines have caused wars. So drawing the line is a very hard question, William. It's always the hardest question. Where do you draw the line? That's a hard question. And one question is, do we actually need to draw a line? Does a line need to be drawn? Is also a question.
Right, because of that line that they made these laws in the first place. Like,
yes. So it's like okay, if you got one leg that's working, it's fine. But if you got two legs not working, then it's not fine. Like drawing lines is because you're always going to have that person on the opposite side of the line that says, "No, I want to be on this side of the line."
I remember. I mean, does anybody remember? I want to say her name was like Brittany something. And she had brain cancer and was very much kind of arguing for euthanasia. A really good girlfriend.
What's euthanasia?
Euthanasia's,
the kids in Asia.
No.
I was trying real hard not to go there. I'm like, he's eventually going to stop. He did not. No.
The euthanasia is assisted suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So saying
okay.
So her argument is that it was terminal. There's nothing she could do about it. She was going to and it was going to be a miserable way to go. And so she wanted to go under her own terms. The problem is that was rather fundamentally illegal in a number of stores. Yes. It means literally the good death. So I was solidly on the side of Brittany and all of that because I'm terrified of developing something terrible that's incurable. And I would like to be able to go out before I get to the icky bits. But my girlfriend from law school, who does a lot with the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and is disabled herself, basically said there was a lot of pushback from her community because they were terrified that these laws would make it easier for people to convince them they weren't necessary.
That's stupid. First of all,
I don't think it was stupid actually, because she's a very great lady.
I feel like I'm for euthanasia. First of all, and because I try to picture myself in that state, and I'd like to make my own choice. Euthanasia is about choice, in my opinion.
But I do feel like can be manipulated.
I do feel like you're saying so. Like doctors are saying, "Oh yeah, you might as well just kick the bucket." Is that what you're saying? Like they're convincing.
That was not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there was pushback from this community because they had legitimate concerns over how far that would go.
You're saying about the precedent that it would set.
Sort of. But also, I'm going to note that we're on euthanasia and we're supposed to be talking about Prodigy.
Well, I mean, because it opens the door to a lot of things. Because we've seen what happens to the doctor, we've seen what happens to Uma, but now it's affecting our children. Because now Janeway feels a parental responsibility to these children now, and we know how motherly she gets. Like with whenever she cares for some hell, we saw her flat out go off on Harry Kim. I don't know how many times after he done yelled at her in the middle of her bridge. Like,
yeah, but she felt motherly towards Harry Kim. I thought.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
think everybody did.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying.
But actually, I want to step away from that. I don't want to step away from that sort of parental relationship, and how important it is for everybody seeing this. Now, remember, we're still we haven't talked a lot about it, but it's still there. There's still a lot of conversations about DACA and a lot of conversations about, undocumented immigrants in the United States and elsewhere, because other countries are having similar debates. And so what Prodigy is saying to, those kids who find themselves without any real choice in the matter in that situation, you're worth something.
Yeah.
And that's huge, guys. That's huge.
The timing on this is actually interesting because just this week on Disney Plus, the new National Treasure series started. And the main character is a dreamer. And she talks about how she wants to be in the FBI. And Harvey Keitel's character, well, you got to become a citizen first. And then that's how she was able to figure out that the next two people from the FBI she met were fake, because she said she wants to be in the FBI. And like, hey, maybe you can do that someday. But
well, there's so many people that are against dreamers and against immigrants. I feel like people like that are not in touch to their privilege. I'll say I am privileged as a person. I'm privileged as a black man in America. I am still privileged. And I think people look at other people and are just like, screw you and what you have going on. Why are you trying to come here and fuck up my life? And it's just like, dude, you have no idea what they have to go through to come here and try to provide for themselves and their family. You don't know where they come from. And that's the shit that pisses me off.
Yeah, I think a privilege is a mountain, right? Where everybody has a little bit of it.
Well, of course. Like it's like a food chain almost. It's just like we got that at the top. I mean, there's even such a thing that I call it gay privilege. Like it's just like you can have your way with certain people just because of being gay.
Not with me, you can't.
Time will tell, my friend. Time will tell. Okay, but anyway, no. So I have.
I only brought one bottle of wine to the show. I'm a little concerned. About how I'm going to need.
So I had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and I'll just keep him nameless. But we were having lunch or something. Yeah, it was lunch, and I did not know that Little Rock, Arkansas, was a sanctuary city for immigrants. I did not know that.
That seems wildly out of character.
For Arkansas, that's what I said. I was like, this is a red state, right?
Arkansas.
But remember that those who typically vote, it doesn't matter which way you vote for, like your decision. But those that are the counties that are usually that vote blue have universities in them. Little Rock is one of those that has about 3 or 4 universities in it, and therefore our entire Pulaski County is straight up blue, which makes Little Rock, Arkansas specifically a safe haven for different. So he's been in America for 4 years, and he's supposed to be gone for a full 10 before being allowed to come back. As long as you don't like break the laws, don't rob a bank, don't kill anyone, yada yada, you're good, But he's not allowed to really exercise the same rights as I do, and I'm a black man in America, and which leads to Marie's point. This is like a mountain, and we each have like our own level of privilege depending on where.
You're privileged just for speaking English. Like I went to Rome a few years back. First, I realized I don't know how to count in Italian, and there was like a simple thing as numbers I didn't know. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, how do people travel that don't speak English? I have no understanding of how they do this, because
a lot of charades.
And everywhere I go, people have always spoke English, no matter what. And that's
a lot of charades.
That's a privilege. That's a privilege.
It is. It is.
So that said, in terms of Dal, will he be learning probably throughout season 2 the extent of how far his privilege goes or how much it doesn't go?
I think we're going to have to wrestle with that, for sure. Because he's got. I mean, it's horrible when you think about it. Like, I mean, they have built up Starfleet and the Federation as this safe haven.
Mhm.
But they always have. That's not
Right. I mean, but specifically
have.
the kids have is what I'm talking about. And so they're about to lose that. And it's not just Dal either, right? Like, I mean, it's all of them because they're all going to have to reconcile what they've come to believe through Janeway,
Right.
the holographic Janeway, and then they're being confronted with reality. And, I'm hoping they're going to continue making better choices than perhaps I have.
Can I make a observation, and then I'd like to turn the floor over to Keith for Easter eggs.
Observe, my friend.
So 7 was assimilated as a child.
Yes.
That throughout all of and we're not here to judge Picard, but as far as 7's story goes, as our storyline goes, she was
I am always here to judge Picard.
She was rejected from Starfleet.
Yeah.
Even when Picard went on her behalf because of her Borg, I'm not going to say Borg implants, but her Borg heritage, so to speak, like the way that she was raised to the point where she always hated that half of herself.
Right.
So knowing how, and that's the Borg. I mean, come on, So it's like when someone ruins it, Starfleet punishes all, just like what they did with the androids after the whole Mars thing went down. Just punished everybody. No more androids. No more synthetic life. None. So
that is a really good point, actually, and it's one I think that we don't cover enough. Right. I talked a little bit about earlier how I thought Starfleet and the Federation had overcorrected, and that's exactly what's going on.
Yes,
that is exactly what's going on. And I mean, and it's really fascinating, especially if you put Picard's Mars issue and compare it to the effects of, say, September 11th on the United States.
Good point. Very good point.
Right. I mean, when an entire group of people, an entire religion basically became persona non grata.
Over like 10 people.
Yeah.
Well, I just finished reading Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, Starry Messenger. And as part of it, he talks about some of the tweets that he's put out there that he's gotten blowback on. And one of them was pointing out how there are only about 3,000 or so people died on September 11th, yet our whole society changed because of it. Now, here while we have how many thousands of people die each year from car accidents.
Yeah.
And there's
more people that died in 9/11.
Oh,
no. Let me make this even more unpopular, since we're going to go for broke here.
Yeah.
How many people are dying of gun violence? How many children are dying of gun violence?
Considering yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Sandy Hook. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And September 11th is what changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember.
And I
will go and watch your loved ones. You can go to the gate and watch them board the plane and wave goodbye as they got on the plane.
Well, look at what we're coming out of now. We have lost 1 million Americans to COVID.
Yep.
Yeah.
1 million worldwide. You're talking about several million people that are gone.
We've lost that to fentanyl as well.
Right.
Yep.
So
yeah, but these are not like, what September 11th and what the Mars attack had in common is that it was a sudden, aggressive, very easily soundbiteable event.
Yes.
Yeah. On U.S. soil.
or
Well,
Mars.
Well, Mars it being at the heart of the Mars,
Federation.
Mars being
Right.
at the
Right.
being
So I mean, it's really sort of fascinating to see like how Star Trek is sort of mirroring these situations. But yeah,
think-
like I mean, and this is the whole thing with the augments too. Like basically 200 people are now like their shenanigans are causing like all these downstream effects hundreds of years later.
Mhm.
Do you feel like
And I kind of
So-
wonder if there's a racial component to this too, by the way.
I have a point to that
Well,
after
always
Jason
is.
makes his
All right,
point.
sorry, Jason.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, do you feel like so the last episode I feel like was like a filler and didn't move the
Yeah,
story forward
yeah.
at all? Did this episode move the story forward, or was
Oh,
this
yeah.
still
Immensely, yeah.
I mean, did you watch
because
the same episode I did? Because
no, I watched it, but at the end of the day, the ships we started with the two ships together and we ended with the two ships together.
With 20 more ships around them, like
and
yeah.
and also in a completely different quadrant too, by the way.
in
Like
a completely
I mean,
different quadrant, like
Right.
Yeah.
we have upped the stakes in a
Yeah,
very
we're in the heart of the Alpha Quadrant now. So
we are in the Terra system, like
no,
They
we're
don't-
not in Terra, but we're in the heart of the Alpha Quadrant.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so was it Gamma?
yeah, like we are heading in the direction of Terra, like for sure.
You know what's so funny is like
we're going to Sector 001.
Star Trek is so ingrained on so Star Trek is so ingrained on the Enterprise is the only one in this sector, but all of a sudden in this
Wow.
episode, every ship can show up. You know,
Well, I mean, when you have an animation show, you can do whatever you want.
I mean, copy paste.
Was it Star Trek 5? It was like, oh, it's going to be here on Tuesday. We're the only people in this sector, but
Well, they used to say in the original
We are
series,
not gonna get
we're the
into-
only ones in the quadrant.
We are not going to
Right.
get
Quadrant.
into. We are not going to get into how they got from Earth or wherever they were in the Alpha Quadrant to the center of the galaxy in half the time that it would normally take to cross
Right.
a quadrant.
All right. Okay. All right. We mock with love.
But
We mock with love.
But this is different. This is different.
But also, like, I mean, credit where it's due, right? Like the original series and even TNG. I mean, they were still figuring stuff out. We're still figuring stuff out, which is why we're having a whole conversation about how the Federation is making people illegal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because
And how and where and to Jason's point earlier, like where the line would be, like where is it no longer gene therapy and now augmentation?
one of the points that you made in FTP was that the idea of the Federation was created based on maybe not American ideals of the 50s, but American ideals at the end of the day. That said, when we're talking about that mountain of privilege, when you compare the Mars attacks and 9/11, and you compare them together, both of them were terrible, tragic events, absolutely terrible. But they were examples of what happens when a power challenges the privilege of the oppressor. Because if you think, and I have to complete this point, because they will ignore all the other tragedies that happened around Earth. They'll ignore COVID. They'll ignore this. They'll ignore that. But as soon as 3,000 people, and most of them are white Caucasian males that die on American soil, then they decide to do about it. You see what I'm saying? And then they make this
something because of sometimes it's because of what the public wants.
Well, I'm sorry, Keith. Go ahead.
I will say on 9/11, however many people died didn't matter.
Well, yeah, of course.
It's not.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
I agree.
It's what
I
we were
agree.
attacked.
Right,
I agree with that.
It's World Trade Center, it's Pentagon, and it's what they were going to attack with the other plane.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If they would have hit the capital, Afghanistan would be a hole in the ground right now.
And it's also the fact that we have been placed in this bubble. We feel like it's this untouchable bubble after the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can touch us. Nobody can do anything,
Exactly.
and we're placed in this space where we are safe from any outside threat. And then that threatened us. That small thing
Yes.
threatened us, and the country was. I remember looking at people for the first time in my life and feeling like a patriot, feeling like, oh my God, I know what you're feeling. And it's like, it's crazy because we fall into this delusion. We have fallen into this delusion that we're untouchable and we're safe, and all we have to worry about is our gas prices and all this shit. When the rest of the world throughout time has always had to worry about people attacking. That's always been a thing. We're just new to the fact that we don't have to worry about anybody attacking us.
I think I like where you're going with this, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really like where you're going with this because I don't think it's necessarily just a question of the fact that just this question of the bubble, which I think is a very valid issue. But I also think it has to do with power and what it says about power and what what the United States has, what the Federation has in terms of actual power. If this can occur, is that power real?
Right. So what were people thinking when Florida got attacked by the Zindi, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mostly that they were excited that there were no more Florida man headlines.
Yeah.
No, they were still there. It was just less.
Well,
but that was the same thing. Actually, it was soon after September 11th. I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah, that was the allegory. Yes.
I think they did that too, and then they showed a lot of xenophobia towards the end of the season.
Right. Yeah. We had xenophobia here. Muslims were getting off right and left.
Exactly.
To the point, rules were made around them at airports.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
So knowing that okay, yeah, we definitely, I won't say we went off the rails, but we're definitely into adult Trek now. Like,
but that's what's great about Prodigy is that Prodigy is not assuming that kids are any less sophisticated, that kids are unaware of what's going on. They know, like, we're dealing with kids who are coming up from having watched, like the school to prison pipeline evolve and affect their lives. We're talking about kids who are dealing with parents who've been incarcerated or taken, and we don't know where they are, where they went. Picard touches on this as well, which I think was really good. We're talking about kids who are dealing with the fact that they have to have Kevlar backpacks.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that you don't know where your parents are. That's crazy.
But if they get picked up by ICE, like they go to a holding detention center, and the family may or may not know where they are.
I see, when it comes to immigration, I see both sides of the coin. I see the side that says, hey man, these people need to be saved and we need to save them. And I see the other side that says, hey man, there's all these people coming in, we got to stop it. Like, it's really hard. It's not simple. The answer is not simple.
And I'm certainly not saying that it is. And I'm not, like, I have my opinions on the issue. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is how all of these issues are impacting kids. And what I love about Prodigy is that Prodigy respects that. And Prodigy is aware of that. And Prodigy is trying to communicate with them. And also with their parents.
You think the kids will get that though?
Yes, I do.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, kids are smart, and it's, I guess what I'm hoping for, and maybe that's what we'll learn in season 2 when it comes out next year, is what will growing up be like for these 5 kids after Dal learns the truth. Like,
or will they be able to effectuate change, which would be a really great sort of metaphor or allegorical exploration of the influence of Parkland kids.
Have we heard of anything? You know what? I do have a question for everyone. Have we heard of anything eugenics wise from Picard and Discovery?
Yeah. Eugenics wise?
Yes. Like basically from the 25th century forward.
No.
Not really Discovery.
Not really Discovery. So because we haven't really heard anything.
Picard kind of touches on it with respect to
because it's a Soong family, and we already had the connection with the Soongs in
Yeah. So I guess what I'm asking is,
and it was strongly hinted on it last season.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is what's gonna happen to Dahl the precedent that will be set for the Federation, that they may change the eugenics laws or slightly adjust it, if you will, from that point moving forward, since we haven't heard any eugenics cases from Picard and Discovery.
It would be nice.
Probably not.
But
Right.
I got to tell you, I'm more concerned about what this says about possibilities for Una.
Yeah, because back at that point, it was still illegal. Even when Bashir took the bat, it was still illegal, and his father got locked up. So it's like they recognized that Julian wasn't responsible, which is why they didn't arrest him. They were just going to kick him out of Starfleet, but they ended up arresting his father. Now, for Dahl's case, who's responsible here?
He's not Starfleet. He's not Starfleet.
He's not Starfleet. He doesn't have any parents, and this happened outside of the Federation. So really, they can't do anything to him except say
they could just say
they
you
can
can't
lock him up.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
They
gonna lock
can?
him up.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, absolutely 100% can. Yeah.
Why can they lock him up just
What?
for being born?
Yep.
He's
That's
still,
the point that we're trying to make. Is
What?
that
What?
hold on.
Okay, yeah.
Hold on. Every discussion about the eugenics wars, every discussion's about the augments. Like, remember, there is a memo that says anybody who looks like this needs to report to Starfleet headquarters.
Yeah, but they can't lock any of those eugenics people up just for being
Why not?
eugenics people.
What?
Why not?
Who have they locked up?
Eric Soon.
Well, that's Eric. You know, the Soons are
They like
are
Eric Soon.
the Soons are an acquired taste.
but they did something. to
They're
be locked up.
also locking up Una.
Well, yeah,
They did lock up Uno. Okay, you're right.
Okay.
If Corey Soon would have been caught by the authorities, she would have been locked up.
She
But
was
why
locked up,
didn't-
but
but-
Una was locked up because she committed a crime.
What crime?
Yeah, she lied.
She lied to
Well.
Starfleet and engaged in Starfleet when she was an augment.
But she's not an augment. I thought that was just
She
her
is an augment.
species.
No, she's an augment.
Okay.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Because her species had its own name. She just hid her.
Well,
Her species-
yes, Illyrians practice genetic modification. That's what
That's what we know.
Right.
Okay.
And she committed a crime by enlisting in Starfleet. That was a crime.
So now we're coming into Measure of a Man again.
No.
No, not exactly.
She-
That's
Because
a
he
question of
hid-
sentience.
That's
This is-
I
He hid
really
his Romulan heritage, though.
no, that's Drumhead.
I'm
That's
sorry,
right.
Drumhead. I'm
That's
sorry,
right.
not Measure of a
There,
Man. I meant Drumhead.
yes.
that's
I'm-
how it was.
I'm sorry. I get those two mixed up.
Big
But I
difference.
meant Drumhead. So now we're coming into a Drumhead situation where you're having to hide your own ancestry just to enlist in something that you feel like it's great, but on the back end you know is really kind of terrible.
I'm just going to pull us back to what Janeway actually says.
Okay.
Is Janeway tells Gwen the augments have been illegal for however many thousands of years. He's never going to get into Starfleet. Like,
Yeah. He's not.
there is literally no. I mean, okay, and so there's a whole conversation that we can have here about, like, you know, how people determine, you know, like how armed forces determine who gets in and who doesn't.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Dahl is being disqualified, not because he's unqualified, not because he can't do what they need him to do, not because he's not smart enough. I mean, I bet you chuck that kid in Starfleet Academy, the first year is going to be real rough for him, but I bet he'll figure it out. So there's nothing that says he can't do the job. It's just
That's not what it's
how
about.
he was born.
It's about setting a precedent for other people to do things after him.
Is it though? Is it though?
Yeah.
Because I'm not persuaded that's true.
I feel like that's what it's about. Like, you can't, if you allow him, then you allow other people to say, okay, I'm going to genetically modify someone else.
Well, that's the question that I was asking. Well, not from the perspective of genetically modifying someone else, because they're going to do that anyway, but of adjusting the laws that are there to make it more lenient, I guess I should say. Because right now, I get we don't want to cause another eugenics wars. I'm for that even, but like
Or bad.
Yeah, or bad. We don't want bad juju, but it's like, dang, we've seen what it happens to adults, but it kind of hits a nerve when it hits our children.
Well, the good thing is that we don't know, because this era is after everything we know of Star Trek. It's not like Strange New Worlds where it's like, well, we know the outcome is,
We know the outcome.
They're not going to agree with it. Now it's like we actually don't know. Maybe they will change something. I don't think they will, but it's a possibility.
I think it'll be an interesting exploration of how they handle it and why they handle it the way they do. And how Prodigy handles it as well, because I do think we are going to see, just judging on how thematically this has been built into, certainly every episode that we've seen in the second half of season 1. So I definitely think that's something we're going to see going forward. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we get out of the situation we've created in Mindwalk.
How many episodes do we have left? Do we have one more?
Like 2, 1.
I thought it was I thought it was 1.
So I feel like the last 3 episodes have been just stretching out this confrontation.
Well, I mean, they kind
A
of
little bit, yeah.
They kind of decided at the last minute to make this season 1 and just add 10 more episodes.
But to be fair, though, we had to get the protostar from a different quadrant.
That's true. That's true.
And Janeway's in the brig. So how do you think she's going to talk her way out of that? Like, you think she's?
I have every bit of faith in Janeway's ability to talk.
This is Janeway's back in her body. She'll get out. Like just like if you think about it, almost every officer that we have seen throughout Star Trek was always capable of getting themselves out of situations, even taking over the ship at some point.
I mean, she's either going to hack her way out, because again, remember, Janeway's background is in science.
Yeah.
And we just literally watched her rebuild a program from scratch.
She just hates
she literally just like, oh, I can fix this. But
yeah, and I really loved the moment of thanks for the memories. That was really funny.
Well, because that was like a doctor reference when he lost his memories and they went through the cycle when he almost destroyed himself. You remember when he couldn't save both? Yeah.
Oh yeah. He kept recycling.
Well, when Keith gets back, before we go over these Easter eggs, because we definitely need time. Keith!
Yo, calm down.
Homeboy.
My love, please return to us.
He's
back.
Yeah, there we go.
Keith, we were hoping you would come back naked.
I hope he didn't hear that. I'm
okay drinking.
There's my papa, though.
All right, you took out.
I am just going to remind all of you that what you put on the internet lives forever. BT does.
This is how I send things to the future.
Is that what we're going for? All right, Keith, we are. Please God, save us with Easter eggs. Because we went to a dark place.
I promise I will be quiet.
Before you save us with Easter eggs, turn your mic on.
I was going to do that anyway. I thought you were going to go ahead on another aside that would take half an hour.
Oh!
Whoa! Girl! Well done.
Keith is like these fools.
Keep throwing shade. I'm here for it. Yes.
Yeah, it helps to be a few hundred miles apart. All right.
Okay.
So we have callbacks in this to the Organians being able to enter other people's bodies, as seen in Enterprise episode. Well, let me get
the one with Hoshi and yeah, like and Travis, isn't it? It's Hoshi and Travis.
Observer effect. It mixed all through them, because for part of it, it's Reed and Travis. This is the second time they've actually merged warp fields. The first time was in Divergence when the NX-01 merged with the Columbia, the NX-02. Yeah. You did have Janeway mention that she once was a salamander.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that, and I was just like, I'm gonna I'm just never going to think about Threshold again.
Like,
Hey.
girl, you actually remember turning into a lizard and
What?
mating with your pilot?
Just stop.
For the record, she was a sexy ass salamander. I just want to say, in my book.
I am not going to drink an entire
Anyway.
bottle of wine.
Anyway. No.
I need everybody to know I didn't do that. That wasn't me.
And I don't have the power to do that. So.
Well, this guy. I can't point.
All right. Anyway, so we had the reference to Threshold that made us all cry.
Threshold. We had reference to her sister Phoebe, who she had referenced having a sister before, but never gave her name. Except there was a book Mosaic in which they gave her the name, and they picked up on the fact that she did have a name in the book. And then, of course, when they arrive at the place with all the other ships, you're seeing Sovereign class, you're seeing Defiant class, you're seeing Luna class.
Yep.
A lot of copy and paste, because when you look at the Sovereign class, they all are facing exactly the same way, looking right at the screen. But Defiant comes in nice and center, and it looks like it's on the only one of its type. But there's at least
but to
5
be
or
fair,
6
I am not casting aspersions on that.
Yeah.
Especially since the animation in this was so much more solid than it was in Ghost in the Machine.
Yes. Yeah, so you had 5 or 6 different classes of starships show up, and they all were facing the exact same direction. So it's a little bit of copy and paste, but it's okay because it's not like it's one entire fleet of one type of ship, like we had in Picard. So, it's a bit more like we saw at the beginning and end of season 2 of Picard, getting a little bit more difference. But it was just kind of hard trying to pick out some of them. Once they get to in there.
Don't talk about season 2 of Picard. That's
I'd have mentioned it a couple times now, Jason.
I know, let's move along.
And of course, other episodes where we had characters changing places, Spock Amok being the most recent one in season 1 of Strange New Worlds, where Spock and T'Pring swapped Katras. And of course, that goes back. That has its.
Turnabout Intruder.
Intruder.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like, didn't we have at least one in TNG?
Yes.
I feel like there should have been.
And I'm blanking on the title.
Let me think.
Someone had to have switched in TNG. Someone.
Well, we had the one where Riker took on the Trill symbiont.
Right. So they're in the host, and then we have Rascals, but they're just children.
Yeah.
The kids.
Oh god, I feel like there was. And we've had Troy get taken over. Do you remember?
We had people that get taken over. Data, Troy, and
I'm sorry, I refuse to remember Masks.
Yeah, Masks was terrible. We're gonna cover that in the episode of Parallels, but
ooh, dude, you need to schedule that out so I can be there because I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Someone had to have been switched. I feel like Data. No, that was a takeover.
Yeah, I don't mean like a.
Did Troy ever switch out with anybody? Like anybody? Like.
Well, yeah. Well, she had been taken over. Because remember, they went
a number of times.
There was the one where it was the planet that was actually a jail, and where they had separated the people's spirits from their bodies and trapped them on this planet. And 3 of them got out and took over Troy, Data,
Troy.
And
Troy, Data, and
O'Brien.
Yeah. And he was like,
we didn't, but that wasn't really Freaky Friday so much.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. They were
kind of hitchhikers. There was also the one where Troy ends up getting taken over by the extremely xenophobic species, and when she broke Worf's arm.
No, yeah.
And I'm even thinking back on all of the transporter accidents. Roe, Geordi, Barkley. Like I can't think of anyone that has actually switched.
Okay, we're gonna have to. We're gonna table this.
We're gonna table this.
Like 15 minutes over. So
at least Turnabout Intruder, at least Spock Amok, at least Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. With Spock's Katra being in McCoy's
I'm sorry. You said words, and my brain just kind of created white noise.
Really?
I had no idea you felt that way about Star Trek. Really? I had no idea you felt that way.
I don't think you know what white noise is.
Well, I'm speaking, so it's obviously white noise.
I mean, literally everything I want to say right now is wildly inappropriate. So everybody be super proud of me because I'm exercising tact.
Come on, Janeway.
That's new.
She's the only one that used the word tact, and I love that about her.
Marie Tact. That's what we call her.
Marie Tact.
Right. Anyway, so.
All right, next week's episode, Supernova Part 1.
Oh, so there are 2 more. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Wait, part 2 is not going to be in season 2, is it?
No, part
thank
2
God.
is the final episode of the season.
Oh, thank God. Because I can't take another major cliffhanger. I can't.
Well, there'll be a cliffhanger. It's just not. I think it's going to be something. I would not be surprised if there's a belief at the end of Supernova Part 2 that the protostar has been destroyed.
I can't deal with that. However, all right. So next week for sure. Watch for all of our announcements on all of our social media because obviously the following week we're getting into Christmas, so we're not sure quite how that's going to fall out yet, but we will make announcements.
Yeah, next week will be the 22nd, so it'll be Festivus Eve.
It will.
So next week on the 19th, we'll be doing an episode of Parallels where we'll be comparing the Naked Now with the Naked
Time.
So that will be an interesting episode.
About that.
So if you're a person that's watching, now is the time to like and subscribe because we really love that type of thing. And you get all our Star Trek Trekkers Delight episodes where we just cover a lot of shit that's just Star Trek for no reason whatsoever.
If you have any thoughts about what we discussed tonight, comment below. Tell us all we're full of shit. Go for it.
And I'm the one who's been drinking wine. All right. Thanks to, I assume, Marco for staying with us the entire time. I hope we see everybody next week when we can have that whole conversation. And yeah.
And William's giving $50 photo shoots.
I think he's all booked up, aren't you, William?
I feel like that's a conversation that we can talk about after the bean footage.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that after. It's a good news, but let's talk about that after. Okay? Yeah.
Bean footage.
Roll it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to ever say it on the internet. Yeah, never. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wait. There was a shadow of a church.
Okay. What?
William has questionable ideas about what he puts. William has questionable ideas about what he puts on the internet.
Oh, I remember that episode.
Uh-huh.
I remember that episode. Yeah.
Wait. What? Wait.